Hi everyone and welcome to this webinar. My name is Fanndís and I'm the product owner of forecasting and planning here at AGR. So let's get started. In today's webinar, we will be discussing the state of today's global supply chains and the growing need for digitalization and modernization. We will briefly review the main benefits of effective forecasting, and then we will discuss the limitations of using your ERP system or spreadsheets to do your forecasting. And lastly, we will show you a couple of examples of how much easier forecasting can be with the right inventory optimization tool. We encourage you to use the chat feature to ask any questions you may have, and we will review them at the end. As we all are aware, global supply chains have suffered many disruptions in the past 3 years, and the disruptions seem to keep on coming. Experts attribute the rising disruption rates to a number of factors, such as increasingly complex global supply chains, increases in severe weather related to climate change, geopolitical situations, and other challenges that will ultimately arise as a result of developing markets. To regain some control, companies must build their supply chain resilience. And digitalization is one critical component in efforts to improve the resilience of supply chains. Since the start of the pandemic, McKinsey has asked supply chain leaders annually about their efforts to overcome disruptions, mitigate risks, and build resilience in their operations. Their third and most recent survey revealed that most companies have significantly increased their digital supply chain investments, with more than 90% of respondents reporting that they invested in digital supply chain technologies last year. These investments mostly focused on visibility, forecasting, planning, and inventory optimization. And one of the key benefits of digitalization lies in the importance of having all your data in one place, as that allows you to build more effective forecasts, amongst other things. And forecasting is such a vital component of supply chain management, as it anticipates future demand and ensures timely stock replenishment. It enables businesses to set right safety stock levels to meet unexpected spikes in demand. It helps managers to account for longer lead times and price fluctuations that are increasingly common with the rise in disruptions. It minimizes unnecessary expenses, for example, due to obsolete stock. And of course, it improves the bottom line. So the main point of digitalization is to utilize your data, but not just in its raw form. It needs to be translated into actionable information to unlock the potential benefits. And while the ERPs hold a lot of data, they usually lack the capability to get the most from the data. And that's where spreadsheets tend to become the default options for many companies. Spreadsheets are a powerful tool, but trying to manage a large and growing list of SKUs on a spreadsheet is challenging, and even for the most advanced inventory planners. Spreadsheets are prone to error, both human and system. They require a lot of manual data entry, and even though the data is initially loaded from an ERP system, most of the following input is manual. And as more data is added, the file can become slower and you run the risk of the file crashing. The whole process is also extremely labor-intensive and time-consuming. And I think it's fair to say that this has been made even worse by the recent rise in disruption. Because just as the pandemic disrupted all our lives, it greatly impacted the supply chain management processes. And still today, managers need to manually account for distorted sales data from 2020 and even 2021 for thousands of SKUs. And finally, it's also worth remembering that the insight that data provides is only valuable if it's available in real time, because today people expect to see updated data at the push of a button. So it doesn't matter how full a picture you can paint as a business if you're only generating it monthly. You will have excellent insight for a couple of days, but for the rest of the month, you will be one step behind as the data becomes outdated. Ultimately, spreadsheets are simply not scalable. They work well for companies that have a small inventory and few suppliers, but there's limited room for growth. By investing in an inventory optimization solution, you can generate more accurate forecasts that consider demand variance, seasonality, trends, and promotions. This will ultimately free up your working capital so you can grow your business. Let's look at some examples of how an inventory optimization solution can improve your forecasting. The first example I want to discuss is the benefit of managing different and changing demand patterns. The demand patterns for items can differ significantly. Some items are experiencing low sales, other items have demand patterns that are intermittent, and some items are seasonal. And while certain forecasting techniques are good at handling seasonality, others can be well suited for intermittent demand patterns. And while ERPs and spreadsheets do support forecasting, they are usually limited to a single forecast model, which can limit the responsiveness and accuracy of forecast for items. So by employing a forecasting engine that analyzes each demand pattern and selects the appropriate forecast model at each point in time, it's possible to achieve more accurate and up-to-date forecasts. Next, I want to discuss how distorted data can affect forecasts and how it can be managed. Most of you might be familiar with the old rule of thumb that increased data always leads to improved predictive performance. However, after a period of uncertainty and disruption, it's really important to evaluate whether all historical data is in fact relevant for forecasting purposes. And many industries, like the sporting goods industry, grew rapidly during the pandemic and has actually sustained their popularity after the pandemic as well. Furthermore, certain items have undergone changes in the timing of their seasonal peaks, indicating that peak months that existed prior to the pandemic may not apply today. In such cases, the pre-pandemic sales data may not be useful for accurate forecasting. Therefore, it is now more critical than ever to have the ability to limit historical sales in forecasting with just the click of a button. Let's look at an example. Here is an example of an item that had seasonal peaks in September and October prior to COVID. But as you can see, when the first COVID lockdown hit around March 2020, sales went through the roof. However, as the sales remained high in April, May, June, and July the same year, it became an indicator of a new demand pattern for this item. And when you look at the forecast for this item, you can see how the exceptional demand in early 2020 affects it. Even though the forecast somewhat picks up changed seasonality in June and July, it also assumes a downward trend when in fact the item is stabilizing to its new normal. So, what happens when we disregard historical sales? In this image, we have disregarded historical sales from the COVID and prior to COVID periods, and the forecast better reflects the item's new demand pattern. And what is more, with the right tool, you don't need to do this for each product, as you can just utilize a bulk update functionality. Then I would like to discuss outliers. Outliers happen in modern supply chain all the time. Sometimes outliers are simply errors, but they can also be real demand that is exceptional and therefore not an indicator for the future. It can be crucial to detect and correct outliers immediately, otherwise they can cause an overreaction in your forecasts. One way is to manually correct them when you see them, but that can quickly become very time-consuming and in some cases just a little too late. A good forecast engine can easily detect and correct outliers on its own when required, which can reduce forecast errors and save up a lot of time. Let's take an example. Here we have a product that has an obvious outlier in September 2022. And as you can see, without any outlier correction, the forecast is affected by the outlier. And here you can see how the overreaction in the forecast has been eliminated with enabled outlier detection and correction through a good forecast engine. Last but not least, with all data in one place and with reliable forecasting engine that makes sure that your forecasts are always up to date, you can focus your time and attention on exceptions and make fast and informed decisions. Through the right inventory optimization tool, with all data in one place, you can set up your own rules and exception reports that are tailored to your business needs and ultimately improve your bottom line. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Now we will open up for any questions. It looks like we have one question. Can you give an example of human error when using spreadsheets? Yes, it can just be as simple as inputting an extra zero or moving the decimal point, which will result in orders that are just much larger than normal. There is always a risk of formatting cells wrong that might result in a craft file. It can be bad for any business. That's all we have for today. If you want to see how the HR software can help you improve your forecasting and improve your bottom line, you can visit our website. And there you can read about the features and request a demo with one of our supply chain consultants. Thank you.